Hello, hello, and welcome to episode number 40 of the Wondrous Stuff podcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every Sunday evening. Well, mostly Sunday evenings anyway. This is the place where you find news, information, and commentary on science, engineering, and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. My name, as ever, is John Gardner, and to help us out on this road to knowledge, please let me introduce my colleagues, as ever. Mr. Richard Smith, Mr. Ross Davidson. Say hello, chaps.
Hello, chaps.
Hello, chaps.
Jolly good. And I am very happy to say Google Engineering have come up trumps and giving me my banner back. Obviously, they were working just for me on this particular incident. Yes, upgraded to Chrome 45. Ba-bum. All my problems are gone. Well, apart from that bit that just happened there. And everything's hunky and indeed dory. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the show this week. And I think I'm starting it off this week. And it's in the last couple of weeks, actually, when Ross was away, Richard and I were talking, one of the topics we were talking about was the new breed of privateers going into space, and we covered it was a company that Paul Allen, ex of Microsoft, had put some backing in, and he was and this company was basically cobbling together some 747s to make a launch craft. What was that called, Richard? Do you remember?
Can't remember.
No. Which is proof, if proof was needed, that we can remember things for just 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after the show, and then that's it, it goes. Anyway, so we were just basically running it around the fact there's a lot of new privateers who are coming up with launch crafts, and we think it's dead good, and maybe this starts a new space race, etc., etc. Well, so this week there was two stories that piqued my interest, and they were both to do with flight. One of them was sort of like a launch vehicle, and one of them for space stuff. Don't be too technical, and the other one is slightly more down to earth. So we'll start with that one. So Airbus have filed a patent and had it approved for a new plane. Okay, and they're thinking this is a way of taking over the mantle of Concorde. But this plane to be honest, it looks like one of the Thunderbird's crafts. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. But it is a hypersonic plane. Okay, so I can't remember. I think Concorde went to. Was Mark II? I think it could get to.
It was quite fast. I know that.
Yeah, it was definitely over Mark 1, and I think it got to Mark 2 under certain circumstances. Anyway, this one is supposed to go to Mark 4.5, and this is in their PR. I mean, basically, it's a set of diagrams, drawings, and specifications, that's submitted to the patent office. So it's not got to the stage of even having a prototype yet. But this is what the PR is saying, that basically this thing will get you from London to New York in 1 hour. Yeah. Now, I'll show you the picture because it's interesting, and I'll talk you through why it's interesting. There you go. So, if you see here, somebody from wonderfulengineering.com has kindly pointed out some interesting facts about this thing. So it does look very much like the Thunderbirds, doesn't it? It
does. I was just about to say that. It's just off Thunderbirds, isn't it?
So what it is? It's got three. So it's a delta wing. Well, it says it's a Gothic delta wing. I have no idea what the Gothic bit is. Obviously, this is what something to do with Batman.
On top?
It's something to do with Batman or something. I don't know. But it's a delta wing wing shape here. But the interesting thing, I think, is possibly because it's got three different engine types. So it's got your standard turbojets, which I believe are these ones here, because I believe them because there's a big arrow pointing to them. So there's the turbojets. So this is what it'll take off using this this propulsion mechanism here, and then once it's in the sky, right at the back is a handy rocket engine, which will kick in and take it up to 100,000 feet. Sorry. So I think standard jets go to about, is it 39,000, something like that? Anyway, it goes up to 100,000. So obviously it's very near the atmosphere, at the end of the edge of the atmosphere, and very, very thin up there. So once the rocket is taken over, these turbojets then get retracted into the body, just like a landing carriage would. And then it goes on the rocket and takes it up to 100,000 feet. Once it's up to 100,000 feet, these little ramjets on either side of the wings, they take over. And then the rocket cuts out. So then it's just on the ramjets. And so basically to have the rocket, it's got some sort of hydrogen reserve there as well. And it's the ramjets that will take it up to 4.5 Mach.
How fast does it go if you keep all three types going at once?
I don't know. But that
would itself to shreds.
Yeah, we might very well do that. Very well do that, especially considering it does look like a plastic Thunderbird's toy. So,
in terms of those engines, the ramjets, they're the ones that have no moving parts, aren't they? Basically, is it scramjets? Whatever.
A ramjet. The reason why it has to get up to that, the reason why it has to get up to the speed before the ramjets take over, is the whole point of them is that the high speed is required to force the incoming air into the jet for the combustion to take place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A ramjet has, once the incoming jet gets forced in, it still has to reduce the incoming air. It's got to be reduced to a subsonic level before the combustion. That's what a ramjet. Scramjet can have a combustion at hypersonic level.
Ah, right.
And actually, it is funny. It is funny because when I saw this a good few years ago, I remember there was some talk of this scramjet, a scramjet powered jet being a prototype stage. I thought it was very close. I thought it was Boeing who was doing it, or certainly one of the big.
Is the technology used already in missiles and things like that? Then is it?
No. Well, no, because the missiles have to go from 0 to a specified speed, and they've only got one propulsion mechanism, so they can't do that. The fact that the only reason that ramjets work and scramjets work is you have to get them up to a certain speed before they take over. So you'll need some other method of propulsion to get it up to that speed.
I've definitely seen the X planes, the test planes. I've seen scramjets on them in a good few years ago.
I remember
military have tested them.
Yeah, I remember they were banded about things like you could get from London to Sydney in 4 hours and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was easily 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether anybody's working on that at the moment. But this is interesting from the point of view is that they're essentially they've taken out the bits that were bad in Concorde. Obviously, the flames coming out the back, that was quite bad. So they're going to get rid of those. Well, apart from the fact it's got a rocket on. Yeah. But the big things, the practical things, were that you could only do certain routes because of the sonic booms. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, and you only fly during daylight hours. You can fly during night, and there was a lot of routes that were very, very, you were restricted to what routes Concorde could take because of this. But what they've said is because I'll just stop sharing it actually so you can see my wonderful face. What they're saying is because of the design of the fuselage and the wings, they've actually reduced. Obviously, you'll still have to have some sort of sonic boom because that's science. But they've reduced how the boom sounds, or maybe they've tunneled it to a certain.
Will it not be? Place if they're flying higher as well, obviously.
Well, I guess so, but they'll already get to Mach 1 with the normal turbojets.
Right.
So they'll still have the same. So they'll be before they go up to the 100,000 feet. They're on turbojets, just like a normal current aircraft. So if they go to Mark 1, then they'll still get a sonic boom. But I think that they were saying is the way they've designed it is to reduce that effect on the ground, so you won't be able to hear it as much down underneath.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. Was it last year or the year before when there was those reports of the sonic boom up and down the country, and everyone was like, "Oh, what was it? Was it the meteor and all this and all sorts of? Was it some secret test plane and all this?" But it turned out it's just some jets intercepting Russians or something. But they're not supposed to do it. But because it was like sort of an interception thing, they did it.
Was it those Russian bombers that were going around?
Keep it up hearing. But yeah, everybody up and down the country was reporting it, and it was a sort of big story. Everyone's like, "Oh, what was that noise?" It's like, oh. So it obviously doesn't happen very often with planes. And this sound does travel a long way.
This comes back to the wonderful Aurora project. You know the Aurora project, a top secret American thing that was supposed to be on. It's supposed to leave the contrails, which look like donuts on a rope. But again, it was supposed to land. It's supposed to land in. God, I'll attempt this word. RAF McIntyre, which is at the top.
I'll attempt this word.
It's a Gaelic word, but it's RAF McIntyre, right at the top of Scotland, and that landing strip was so long. It was one of the few places that it could land, and also that was one of the fail-safe landing points for the shuttle. But yes, anyway, I digress. So that was the Aurora, and that may be actually there was there's some discussion whether the Aurora had scramjets in, and that's how it could fly so high. But anyway, so this is a patent that they put in, that Airbus have put in. They're thinking of using it as a civilian or a military aircraft, so a transportation or people carrier. They don't know yet. So that was the interesting one. I quite like that. The not, well, for me it wasn't so interesting, but the fact is it came out at the same time, so I thought I'd cover it as well. The DARPA, the American Defense Research Projects Agency, the one who gave us the internet, or at least ARPANET, they've given a contract to three manufacturers, American manufacturers: Boeing, Marston Space Systems, and Northrop Grumman. And those three space companies have all subcontracted it off to Virgin Galactic because they're the only ones who've got something that's very close. But so basically essentially the American government have given a contract to Virgin Galactic, is the story, via these three companies. And this is for their XS-1 unmanned craft. Have you seen that before?
No.
Well, it's essentially a plane-like device. So it looks very similar to I guess the shuttle, the space shuttle, but it's much bigger. And you instead of having a loading bay, you plonk like the satellites on top of it, and it flies up. And then releases, so it lands and takes off like a normal plane. That's the interesting bit, I guess. And it goes into low Earth orbit, and you're supposed to be able to land, do a conventional take-up, launch satellite, land back down, and do that 10 times within a month or something like that. That's what their aim is. That was the other story. That was the least interesting bit of it, but I thought I'd mention it as well. So
in terms of these planes, right? It's one of these things that I think I've probably heard loads of times over the years. Whenever they talk about planes, you can get from London to New York in X amount of time, an hour and a half, or whatever. What's the flight time at the moment? Would it be like 7-8 hours more?
Well, it took me 7 hours to get from Heathrow or Gatwick to Cuba. So
would that be an overnight flight? I'm just thinking, practically, is there in the age of the modern internet and meetings online and all this sort of thing, is the need to get from London to New York there enough to make it worth investing in these sort of planes?
Well, but people are ancient beasts, and they still like face-to-face talking. God knows why.
Yeah.
I much prefer to do it online, to be honest, if I could.
Yeah.
In fact, we've now got Sage have now got every office has got at least one telepresence room, which is a massive sort of like two 50-inch screens next to each other. With a massive, like, near broadcast quality camera, and you can do direct telepresence through Cisco with them, and they're really, really top. I mean, I was doing one with Warsaw this week, and
so these are the ones where the screen's in the middle of a table, and you have half a table here, and they have the other half the table.
No, it's not. It's basically two. If you just think of two conventional domestic flat screen televisions right next to each other, so it's one big long screen. With a camera in the middle, and on your screen you can see them. They can see you, and on the side screen you can share PowerPoint presentations between them. Right. But the clarity is great, and it really works. But yeah, some people still like to have the handshake and be there for any business deals that they do. I guess the reason, but then again, saying that, they were, I think that probably what will end up being like a military.
Well, it'll be for pleasure. Well, surely most flights are pleasure rather than business anyway, are they not? And bear in mind, when they're saying London to the States, that's obviously just what they're saying to us. To the Germans, I'm sure they're saying Germany to the States, so it's connecting Europe to the Americas.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's an Airbus, so they'll, like you say, they'll have to sell it in each of the constituent countries.
Maybe it would create a new market as well, though, because if people are having to put up with 9 or 10 hour flights at the moment, maybe that deters a lot of people who would, if it was a 2 hour flight or less, would then go on it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, or at least it would make, when we're talking about business, it would make that a lot more practical, wouldn't it? If you get there for a meeting and things like that. But
well, I mean, that's it. You could go to New York and get back in the same day.
Yeah.
Which is, you could get back. You could go to New York, have an entire day's meeting, and get back in the same day.
I mean, how is this? This is just a patent at the moment, and it's a prototype, is it?
Well, I don't think it's even a prototype yet. I think it's just literally specs and infrastructure, structural diagrams and stuff that have been submitted to the American Patent Office.
It still sounds pretty fairy tale at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I must admit. But that does mean that, I guess, no other company can come up with an aircraft that has 3 different propulsion mechanisms.
Yeah.
It's
just the fact that it's not coming down gradually. You know what I mean? Like, I understand how you can have a big leap and you can have a new technology that comes in that means things are halved or even quartered from before. But to me, if it's 9 hours at the moment, the jump down to 1 just seems. You'd imagine there'll be an intermediate technology would come in before that. You would have thought.
I think they'll have a lot of trouble trying to convince general people to get on a rocket jet, basically. Because I think people will think rockets, aren't they dangerous?
That was exactly the point I was going to make. I just don't think people will go on anything that's got powered with hydrogen, to be honest.
Yeah. I was talking about this before with the Hindenburg disaster, didn't we, when we were talking about the airships, even though the one you were talking about wasn't.
The helium powered now, aren't they? Or they're certainly inert gas.
That killed off them. The safety record was actually good, even with those disasters taken into account. But it just sticks in people's minds, doesn't it? If something's relatively new and something goes wrong early days, it's a bit like spaceflight, isn't it? I suppose that probably statistically, it's an odd one, because if you have a disaster, because you've only got sort of, I don't know what it would be, but 100 other manned flights, and then you have 8 people dying in one, it does the safety record in for a long time, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Percentages high. Yeah.
I mean, well, just look at Malaysia, Air Malaysia. So to be honest, their safety record wasn't bad until the 2 flights in the last couple of years, which is their average has dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
Doesn't take a lot, unfortunately. But
Well,
yes,
yeah, that's it. If I suppose even with millions of flights, if you're unfortunate enough to have two big sized planes go down, then and everyone else is on 99.999% safety. That doesn't take a lot, does it? To you lose 700 people and you're down to 80-something% safety.
And of course, none of those, what people don't realise is, well, or don't take on, as is that none of those was a mechanical failure. One of them was a person failure, and one of them was being blown out of the sky by a rocket launcher. And quite frankly, there's bloody sod all they could do with that second one. There's
but not fly over a conflict.
I was going to say, yeah, avoid conflict zones would have been a start.
But they weren't the only ones flying over there.
No, but obviously still not mechanical, is it?
No. So, but of course now it's like, that's colour. In fact, Air Malaysia had to have a bailout from the government last year, or actually the start of this year, because basically everybody was not taking any, buying any seats on their planes. On the flip side, if you want to go somewhere over into the Far East, and you want something cheap, that is the cheapest airline currently.
Yeah, presumably they don't come down that much though, because it's one of those things with planes, isn't it? That the overheads, if they can't cover the overheads, they just cancel the flight. So they only come down by 10-15%, and then they stop coming down because.
I think they're operating at a loss, but they're being bolstered by the government, and they are operating as a considerable loss. But they have to keep going. They're basically, well, you could do one of two things when you've had a big, huge last couple of years like that. You could just say, that's it. We'll change the name, which is a good one. Or we call it a day, or we change the name, or basically we're just going to plough on, and at some point this will become, the yesterday's news, and then we'll start picking up again, and then we'll be able to put the prices up.
There was one that restaffed with Westerners. I can't remember which one it was. It was a while ago now, but they had I think I've mentioned this before, but they had a sort of cultural legacy problem where it was an Asian organisation, and they were too respectful, basically, and that was causing problems where they weren't challenging, basically, which is an integral.
Oh yeah. Because I think we talked about it at the time that because of the culture, nobody would take on their superior and say there was an issue here.
And what they did there was they just restaffed, not everyone, but they restaffed the important parts, the hierarchy. They restaffed with Westerners who didn't care about that, basically.
Yeah, because the Westerners, they're all belligerent bunch of gits, they really are.
Well, Americans, I mean, they're the example that's always held up. They don't really have that respect for authority in the same way as Asian countries have. I guess we're probably a little bit between, probably more towards the American side, but we're not quite as challenging as they are we?
I think we're getting better. I think the British reserved character it's starting to get a little bit more belligerent.
Certainly, the Americans and the Anglicised countries are definitely the ones that have this least. The culture of honour thing is the least prevalent anyway. Yeah,
we're certainly not the British characters that were perceived in Carry On Up the Khyber, where we used to sit. Wasn't that one where they were sitting in their big old hall and getting bombed, and they were still ploughing on with tea. We must have the tea and scones. So we're gone past that stage. I hope. Well, hopefully, anyway. Anyway, that's probably come to the logical confusion. Confusion, yeah, it's definitely. I think the Freudian slip was great. So we're going to go over to Ross now, and he's going to give us some gen on 3D printing.
3D printing, yeah. So this is something that's been.
You might have heard of it.
You might have
been
heard
around
of it,
for a bit.
So it's been around in some shape or form since the 80s, I think, and probably before. And you know, it's quite popular now for lots of different materials: plastics, polymers, metals. There's someone using it to do chocolates as well, 3D printing chocolates, so foods come into it as well now. But what I was wanting to talk about was a couple of things that have actually both come from MIT in the past week and a half. And the first one was it's MIT's Media Lab's Mediated Matter Group and the MIT Glass Lab. And what they've done is they've invented a 3D printer that prints glass. And I've got hold on, I have a...
Yeah, I saw that actually, and it was pretty damned nice.
Yes, I have, or I had until my browser closed, which I shall... I'll have to find it again.
Well, when you were talking about this, though, that I thought you were going to... There was another news story that I had on... there was another American university who were printing...
this might be my second subject.
Printing tools for the space station?
No, that's a different one. Yeah.
No, that's the third. That's the third subject.
One,
then. Yeah, they're printing tools that they can use on the space station. So the idea is that they put a 3D printer on the space station. They can print their own tools.
Themselves. Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah. So this one, I'll just get this image here. Hopefully you can see it. This is an image of the basically it's a development machine.
So this is molten glass, is it?
This is molten glass, and what it does is it heats it up to like 2,000 degrees or something, and then squeezes it through an aluminium nozzle. Now, one of the things that they've had to overcome is the fact that molten glass likes to stick to basically anything. So they've got over that with aluminium and various things. So this can be used, like you say, molten glass, and then they can, as you see, 3D print. But this opens up a lot of sort of possibilities, you know, above and beyond the idea of just doing, you know, nice fancy jars and stuff like that. In that they could do, you know, lots of architectural things. So for buildings, you could do, you know, a complex structure if you actually print the glass, and do a lot more than what you could do with normal glass. I was going to say blowing, but glass construction. So doing all sorts of things with conduits and lighting and optical fibers in the building fabric of the building itself, that sort of thing.
Because I guess, well, yeah, I suppose anything can, if you can extrude a bit of glass fiber, that would be excellent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was the first one, and then the second one, which was from MIT again, which I think is the more interesting one, is they've also revealed a 3D printer that can actually use 10 different materials simultaneously. So, you know, pretty much any 3D print you'll have thought of will just be one material, so either extruding it or cutting it or whatever. But they've got one which they call a multi-fab printer that they think they can get out for costing about $7,000 as well, which is pretty cheap.
That is pretty cheap.
To use 10 different materials. And their thoughts with this is that they can build actual fully functioning machines in one go. So circuit boards, or you know, with machines with embedded motors and that sort of thing, just printed in one go. Now they've succeeded in doing things like, you know, LED lenses. They did sort of a simple cutting machine. They tested with smartphone cases that they could actually print around your phone, so it's sort of a solid block that your phone's in. But it just means that, on top of the sort of idea that you can print off the parts for a machine and then construct it, you can actually print off the fully constructed machine.
So I've got one here. I've got the picture actually here. Actually, this is 3 rhinos that they've done with it. Yeah. They're all different materials, but they're all from the same. So one's opaque, one's like looks like a stone type of material. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So I think obviously 3D printing, it's revolutionized a lot of things, you know, lots of prototyping and that sort of stuff. But in terms of sort of making fully functional machines, it's useful in terms of components. But I think the idea that you can have a printing machine that can actually do the entire thing with all its moving parts and everything, I think is just it's a bit of a game changer, I think. So obviously they've got this as a sort of a prototype. They've done simple things like like the rhinos and stuff like that. But I just think it's a great step forward, and it's going to change a lot.
You can do parts. Does that mean you can 3D print a 3D printer?
Yeah, you could do. Yeah, so you could do the full. This is the thing, we talked about this before. I think self-replication and that sort of stuff. But obviously, the construction of something is probably more complicated than the building of the parts. But if you can build the whole thing itself, yeah, you could just set it up and then come back.
And of course, from that point, we will be useless and annihilated by the machines, for they will take over the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's been some controversy about weapons. You can apparently build almost a fully functional weapon and then just acquire.
Well, you can. There was this is, I think it was about a year ago. Somebody came up with a full pistol.
Yeah, I saw a video where someone was actually testing that, and it did actually fire, but only once. It fired the bullet, but
and then melted,
destroyed itself basically because the material just couldn't. It could work, but it would just destroy itself.
But then,
a lot of the 3D printers they're for prototyping, they're for realizing models of machines or things you're going to make, not necessarily building the end product. But
still makes it a concern, doesn't it? That you can manufacture a gun. It has no history, no identity. Yeah, you could just use it once and perform an assassination and then just dismantle it.
You still have to buy the bullets, though. You can't print the bullets.
Yeah.
Yet.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Also, 3D printing of artificial parts, artificial organs, and medical parts as well. That sounds like it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, I think the example that they're using is like hip joints, isn't it? Replacement hip joints, knee joints and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean that in terms of I mentioned before different materials and stuff. I'm sure there's 3D printers that sort of build out of biological material as well. So they could do all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff these days.
I mean, we are considering that 5-6 years ago, we were just hearing about them, and now you can go down. I can go down to Maplin and buy one. It's just fairly amazing. That's real progress in terms of speed of progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. So that is one to look out. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot more stories like the ones you said tonight, and also the other one that I saw, which was the students who were going to put a 3D printer on the space station so they could print their tools in case they leave tools at home. They can actually get them printed out.
Or they lose them like was it not so long ago? Someone on the space station was using a ratchet or something, or a wrench, and then sort of on the live video, you just saw this thing slowly floating away.
Yeah.
Forgot to strap it on. It's like, oops.
Bollocks is the word.
I think they had to avoid it. They had that because obviously it would come round the next pass.
Yeah, of course.
Move out the way just in case.
Right, okay. Well, we'll leave 3D printing for now, and we'll toddle on to the underwater world, where Richard is going to talk about scorpions. But underwater scorpions, not your standard scorpion.
Underwater world of the ancient past. So this is 460 million years ago, during a period called, I'm not going to get this right, but
it'll be better than John's attempt at that.
I'll try better than that. It's called Ordovician period.
Yes, absolutely. I knew that one. We've never heard of that one. Good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you go to like sort of the large time periods, it's kind of like the second one. So you had the Cambrian, which is where first complex life occurred, multicellular life. So it's the one that immediately follows that. So to give it some context, 460 million years ago, the first proper dinosaur was 243 million years ago. So it's a long time before that. So this is a discovery of a fossil. I'll try and share while I'm talking at the same time. And like John said, it's a sea scorpion. This is it. Can you see that?
Yeah, he looks cool. It's
5'7" inches. The fossil that they've found is 5'7" inches. The actual species was believed to get up to 6 foot, so as tall as a man. And as you can see there in the picture on the right, it could rear itself, or it's thought to have been able to rear itself up like that. It was predatory.
Fish don't have any of it.
It's a stuff of nightmares, isn't it? It was a predatory animal. There was actually larger scorpions around at the same time, but they were herbivores. This one was a predator. So it's the first. Basically, it's the oldest large predator. So this is the first that we've discovered so far. The first large predator, and what a predator it is. So
is it venomous? Or did they know if it was venomous?
I don't think it would know. Well, I guess you could possibly know if you had like structures in place where you would associate venom with. I guess you could know, but no, it's not thought to be venomous. Just had sort of crushing mouth parts.
So
really, really big claws. So
why did they call it a scorpion then?
Just that it's scorpion-like. It's got a tail on the end there, and but the I see what you're saying. Has the tail got?
Yeah.
No, it has. No, it definitely hasn't. The tail was actually used for swimming and balance, not in the way that a modern scorpion. It's not related in any way to a modern scorpion. It's just that it looks like a scorpion, basically.
It's just a fish, then.
They made a massive attempt to get this. It's been found 18 meters below the upper Iowa River, so they had to temporarily dam it to collect the specimen. And
did they know it was there? I'd say it was a big job to dam a river to go digging 18 meters down. Did they just know that there was going to be something there?
They must have had good cause. I don't know whether or not it's an accessible, inverted quotes, accessible fossil collection for that layer, for that age. Yeah. So maybe that was the only place known that they could get it. Mm-hmm. I suppose if you're just prospecting and you're just looking, let's see what we find, then it's okay. But if you've got something specific in mind that you're trying to discover, or a period that you're trying to investigate, I think you have to sort of go to a particular site and have a look. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they went to great lengths. But when you think this creature emerged just after the time when the first fish with jaws appeared, so this is how far back we're going. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a time when life was very, very basic. So this is one of the first more complex predators. But just a bit about the planet during the time. So it was mostly water at this time. Iowa and North America would have been an ocean. Just before this organism evolved, the water in the ocean was 45 degrees Celsius, so it was a completely different situation to now. It actually cooled during that period just before this evolved, cooled to modern day temperatures, where it's pretty much stayed at that level ever since. Obviously we've had ice ages, but the ocean temperatures have more or less. That's why it's quite concerning when you talk about global warming and you see sea surface temperatures change. They are quite, even over millions of years, they're quite static. So 45 degrees, we've not seen anything like that before or since. And that's pretty much it, really, because there's not a great deal about it. But I just thought it was an interesting find that this was the first large predator, and that it was so impressive for being the first large predator.
So is this, when you say first large predator, is this sort of just the earliest we've found, or do they think this is sort of like at the bottom end of large predators? Like,
well, they know
the boundaries.
They know from how hospitable the planet was. Well, first of all, they know that it's the period just after life evolved. So you've got the Cambrian period, where before that it was single-celled life. So the period before that was first multi-celled, and then, I mean, it's a big time period. Don't get us wrong; it's hundreds of millions of years, but. This is potentially they could find another large predator a little bit further back, but you're not going to go. You're not going to be able to go much further back than that without getting into where life is very simple. So I think it's I gather that it's kind of a. It's surprising how impressive and complex it is for the time period that it lived in.
Yeah.
So they believe it's kind of the first you would have seen, because at the time, even the multi-celled life were all filter feeders. So the ocean was completely dominated by filter feeding creatures that mainly just sort of floated along, whereas this was like self-propelled and really took the path.
So it sounds like this had no natural predators then.
Oh, it would have been definitely top of the food chain. Yeah.
So what did it evolve into? Did it? Because there doesn't seem to be anything comparable in the sea currently.
No. I think that sort of form, its close relatives were the sort of dominant large multicellular life of the time. So it was probably a predator to other organisms closely related to it. So that's what often when you find with the dinosaurs and things like that, or the early reptiles that were the precursor to the dinosaurs. A lot of them, the predators were of the same. So it would be like primates hunting primates sort of thing. But yeah,
interesting.
But no, not related to scorpions in any way, shape, or form. But
so very early, a predator, a major predator, and no natural enemy within the sea. So it's we've discussed this many times, and I'm intrigued about what genetic route did it take to? Did it go extinct? Did something else that had a slightly was similar but slightly better?
We're talking so far back that the fossil record's very, very patchy. So even with dinosaurs, which are much, much later and are much, much better preserved because of conditions at the time, tar pits and things like that are a reason why we've got such good records of dinosaurs. But we're actually in the golden age of dinosaur discovery right now. China especially, they're finding the number of species that they're finding in our lifetimes is far outstripping everything found before our lifetimes. So just in our lifetimes, they're finding more number of species of dinosaur than ever before that. So that'll be even more true of this period. There's very, very little fossil record that's been uncovered. I think with dinosaurs, it's something like, I remember, I don't know if I just worked this out in my head, but thinking by the end of my life expectancy, we won't have even uncovered 50% of dinosaur species. So they know roughly how many there should be. So we're just tip of the iceberg. And of course, this is a lot further back. So to answer your question, I don't think you know what the intermediates are between this and stuff later, because the fossil record's just like, you find one, and then you've got like a few million years gap either side of it.
And I guess it's not something that you can easily extrapolate or interpolate from one thing.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, you got from A to B, because you're actually saying, well, you're going from A to Z, and you haven't got B to Y in the middle.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Well, and a lot of the time you're doing massive. That's why some of the dinosaur reconstructions in museums come under criticism, and I think one of the big ones that was in one of the National History Museums got took out, didn't it? Because it ended up not being its own species. It was a thigh bone of something else. Because they have to extrapolate, they find one bone, and then they just extrapolate from that, which obviously can be error prone. And then you find another bone, and you're like, oh, actually this isn't an independent creature at all. So it's a lot of guesswork when you've only got a small data set. Yeah.
So, a natural question. I think a natural question from that point. They know where they found this and what level of ground this was at. Presumably, one could think that if there was anything of comparable size, obviously, if you microbes or single cell organisms, they're not going to be stored in a fossil. But if you've got something of the similar size, presumably you might have a chance of finding something else.
Yeah, well, there was larger scorpion-like creatures, similar body plans to those, at the other side of the world at the same time. they'd had evolved from a common ancestor that were herbivores and even larger than these, but they weren't part of they had no interaction with each other because they were completely other ends of the planet. I don't know what stops you traveling. I guess maybe there's bodies of water that are different temperatures that you simply can't get across. Because you'd have thought when the planet was mostly ocean that there wouldn't be many barriers to going where you like. But I guess even then there would be things stopping you. But yeah, I think in terms of big life, this body plan was it basically. So everything was similar to that. What they've found so far. But this is the thing: if a creature is common, so they'll have lots of fossils of the filter feeders because they were absolutely abundant. Whereas if it's something where I don't know, a few million years from now, trying to find a panda fossil might be very problematic, because if it's got a low population, even if it's survived for tens of millions of years, it's not putting enough fossils down in the right places for you to find again. And also, if you just occupy a place on the planet where the conditions aren't right for preserving fossils, if it's just like a barren landscape and not, they just get eroded by the weather or by the ocean, then you're not going to find anything. So who knows? Who knows what else was around? It's all speculation.
But interesting speculation.
Well, this is just like, I think it's really good because it's like a snapshot. You found this full specimen, you know for a fact that this existed. You can carbon date it to the time, and it's just amazing that we can look back 400 million years and find a 6-foot-tall sea scorpion that lived at the time. I think it's incredible.
Put the picture back up. I want another look at it.
I have to say that I found the same photograph on the Daily Mail website as well.
What was their headline? Killer migrant something or other.
Migrant sea scorpion.
Yeah, taking our jobs.
I think it's just the one artist's impression because it's just been found. This is the thing as well. This has just been found. This is why it's news.
Are they monkeys behind it? Tails.
The what?
Behind it, looks like there's monkeys behind it.
Just talk, Richard.
I think that they remind me of triops that you can get, the little temporary pond dweller things. They look a little bit like those.
What are those things under? Right, okay. So it's very hard to say when I'm speaking and tell you what I'm looking at when I can't see it on the screen.
You can click on his thing and it'll show it full screen.
Right, okay. So what are these little underneath the face, the head? They look like two little white. They look like little sort of barbs. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean.
Oh yeah, because it's got. Well, that's the other thing as well. They're all coming out of its head. I think the ones at the very front, if that's the ones you're talking about, I think that's just for like sort of gathering things into its mouth.
So and obviously we won't know about the eyes, but presumably those eyes are either just forming in the evolutionary scale, or they don't look particularly useful.
Yeah, I think it's a long time. It'll be a long time before the compound eye evolved. I would have thought. So yeah, it'll be a non-compound eye of limited use.
Wow, intriguing.
But again, we probably don't really know that. We probably just know when the first record of the compound eye evolving is. It could have evolved several times before that, and we wouldn't necessarily know. But yeah, I think life was a lot more simplistic. So even though it's large, it will be at a molecular level. It would be more simplistic than life today because it just hasn't had that length of evolution to get that complex yet. Mm-hmm. Certainly with the dinosaurs you see in the Cretaceous, the late period dinosaurs, you see the more intelligent, the more sort of varied dinosaurs than you do. The early ones are the more sort of dumb, simple ones, basically.
Intriguing.
That's sea scorpions.
There you go, sea scorpions. Done. Right, well, I think that's perfect timing to end up today's show, actually. This is episode 40. As always, I'll give you the end of the show spiel, but this time I've got me little things back, so I can say, if you have any information that you want us to impart to us, if you want to ask us some questions that you want to discuss online, if you want to come on the show and if you've got something that you want to get off your chest of science, engineering, and technology, drop us a line. We've all got our little banners on this week, and we all got our little Twitter handles on. We've also got an email address, which is wonderofstuff@gmail.com, and the blog, which is wonderofstuff.blogspot.com. That has all of our links to all of our YouTube videos, and also has, or certainly will this week, have an RSS feed to the audio version of those blogs that we've done. At some point, we will be getting the wonderstuff.com email address and website all sorted out, but we haven't got that yet. So please, we enjoy making it every week, and we would still do it if nobody watched. But if we get some feedback, it's even better for us all. So please drop us a line. Until next week, then. I think that's probably the end of the show, and we say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.